Welcome to Casa Vadd. I'm Vadd, and today we are playing ARK Survival Evolved. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. If you have enjoyed Casa Vadd before, welcome back. Make sure you turn on notifications when you subscribe to stay current. When building water taming traps, we want to make sure we are always using the environment to our advantage. I'm here on the island map. You can see the coordinates on the screen, and I saw these two rocks, and I said, perfect, I can throw up some gates and I can get some water tames into this water pen. So rule number one is use the environment. You can build a pen like this on any map. You just have to be a little creative with what the terrain is giving you, and you throw up some gates. If you use behemoth gates, you can fit anything through them to tame them. If you use dino gates, you cannot fit a megalodon. Here you can see we have an Ichthyosaurus coming into the trap, one of the ARK Dolphins. It's a passive tame. The trap gives us lots of room to chase it down and make sure that we have a successful tame. Again, you can use this trap for mantas. Mantas are also a passive tame, and they don't always flee, but sometimes they get a little aggressive, so it's nice to be able just to step out of the water to the safety of the land from the mantas. If you do use this trap for megalodons, this exact location, it's tough to get a megalodon up here. They do fit, but it's pretty shallow water for them. If you use this trap for mantas, you can see there are two little dino gates along this rocky edge. If you're in this exact same spot, you might want to gate this off. You can get over it with the manta yourself if you give it a little jump. I've never seen a manta in the wild use the jump. Another water taming trap you want to know how to make is the mid-water pen. You can see the location on the screen. You can make this trap anywhere you want to. It's a pretty easy trap to build. However, the mid-water pen is really only useful for megalodons. We want to be building our taming traps out of stone structures. The only water creatures that can break a stone structure is an alpha. The second rule to water taming traps is know the size of what you're trying to tame. A megalodon can fit through a 2x2 wall gap. However, in the wild, they generally won't do it. You can ride them through a 2x2, but you have to build your traps as a 2x3. I know that seems a little unusual because the megalodon doesn't fit through the dino gate, which is too wide. The midwater pen should be built somewhere where the water is just deep enough you can get to the surface in an emergency, and the aquatic tames are well underwater, making them easy to kite into the trap. The last compartment is only too high, making it easier to escape when you have something in the trap. The hatch frames also provide more areas to shoot my tranks through as well as escape through as needed. Here you can see I've got a megalodon in the trap, and I'm gonna need to drop another single door frame here so that the megalodon won't escape from the trap. This can be done without scuba, it's just a little harder. The megalodon here is not going to be able to escape, so if I need to go back up to the surface or come back a little later and finish my tame, he is good and trapped. Once we have tamed our water tame, to get him out, we're going to need to break those same door frames that kept the megalodon in the trap. Our next water taming trap is going to stay true to the number one rule for underwater taming, which is use the environment to our advantage. We're going to make a deep terrains trap. On the island map, there is a natural cave here, which gives us a little forward operation base. It has these nice two entrances. We're going to block one of them off and make ourselves a deep terrains trap. It's going to be pretty cheap to build, and it's going to be a pretty comfortable place to tame those larger underwater creatures. We're talking your mosasaurs, your plesiosaurs, your squids. We're putting down one behemoth gate. We're putting down a couple of pillars, and then some stone ceilings going towards each other for this deep terrains trap. You can build this trap anywhere. It doesn't have to be on the island here. It doesn't have to be at this cave here. It works on any of the maps. Get a little creative. Use the terrain to your advantage. Remember, rule number two is to know the size of what you're trying to tame. The smallest height you can put those pillars and the blocking ceilings is 6 high. Any lower than 6 high, and you can't fit a mosasaur in there. You can leave fairly big gaps in the trap when you're taming the larger underwater tames. As long as you don't leave a gap larger than 2 squares, none of the large aquatic tames are going to be able to get out through your trap. The third rule for underwater taming in ARK Survival Evolved is to brace for impact. Something is going to go catastrophically wrong. Something that you didn't plan for, you couldn't have planned for, it's going to happen. You want to mentally prepare yourself, and you want to also prepare to bounce back and overcome when these obstacles happen. You're trying to tame a Plesiosaur and you have the one you want, it's a great level, and then its buddy comes around the corner and now you have two Plesiosaurs you're dealing with. You've got your Moza knocked out in the trap and everything's going smooth, and then an entire herd of electric creatures come over and shock you both out. Something's going to go wrong. This is a part of taming underwater in ARK. It's an additional difficulty. There's no oxygen. Your movement speed is hampered. Things can come at you from all 360 degrees. Hey, when you're taming squids, it's a little derpy, it's a little arky. They kind of look like they're out of the trap. They can grab you from all kinds of places. Just relax. When you're using a cave, again, we want to be planning and preparing to succeed. Set up some basic taming supplies, some beds, something to cook, something to fix, something that breaks. This will give you more control over the situation. Again, you probably want to block off the second cave entrance if you're taming in this cave so that nothing sneaks its way in. Another underwater taming trap you can build is the Deep's Fortress trap. I start with an 8x8 square. We're going to use behemoth gates. Behemoth gates are 7 foundations wide. If we put down a fence foundation, it gives us a snap point. They're not going to be perfectly even. It's going to drive you, me, and everyone else a little nuts. The largest gap is where we're going to come in here and we're going to put down a pillar. That pillar is where we're going to build our way up to the top and work on a lid for the trap. The behemoth gateway is 12 pillars or walls high. The gate is only 10 pillars or walls high, but the biggest thing currently in game is the Mosasaur. Build this trap however high you want to. You want to go to the 12 high, right up to the top of the gate frames, perfect. You want to stop at the gate, 10, great. If you're only worried about getting the Mosa in, you only have to get 6 high. I leave fairly big gaps in here. It gives me plenty of room to swim in, swim out, and get things into the trap. Remember, rule number 3 was brace for impact. If we're going to be out here taming for a while, and we're out in the middle of the deep ocean, I'm going to suggest putting in a little FOB, a little forward operation base. You can't put beds underwater. This is not a vacuum compartment, just some real simple supplies in here. It could be helpful for when you're building to not have to carry all this weight. It can also be helpful for when something goes wrong, when it does go wrong. Maybe you need to repair a scuba or keep some taming food. You've got options. This is good. The next taming trap is going to have a little bit more of a sleek design, a little bit more of a classic trap. It's going to be that Deep's Pillar trap. You're going to start off with just 1 behemoth gate. If you want to use 2, you can put one on both ends. I go 8 pillars out. You only have to go 5 or 6, depending on what you're taming. Remember, rule number 2, know the size of what you're trying to tame. I recommend building it 8 out. I build it 8 to 10 up. Not a big deal. If you want to build it a little shorter, remember, rule number 1, use the environment to your advantage. This is going to cost more resources than some of the other traps that are able to use the natural terrain in your environment. Another thing to note here is we're building with metal. And I said, hey, make sure to build with stone. If you're going to invest the time, energy, and resources to set up a deep water trap, I'm going to recommend that you switch to metal tier structures. If you already have the scuba, then you're going to have access to some decent metal nodes and metal gathering options. Why are we building out of metal? Well, there's nothing worse than failing to respect rule number 3, which was brace for impact. You're going to be out here taming and everything's going to be going perfect, and then alpha something's going to come along and it's going to go right through your stone trap. You do not want that to happen. Spend the extra resources, take the extra time, build your trap out of metal. I use pillars for this second entrance or exit. This means when I'm trying to get something into the trap, I'm leaving the gate open and I'm flying out the back end here where these pillars are, or I'm flying out the roof. I left some pretty big gaps. However, most of the deep water aquatic tames cannot fit through these large gaps. They are very, very large creatures. That Megalodon only fits through a 2x2 gap, and I don't have any 2x2 gaps in this trap, and I could actually leave more gaps and not have an issue at all. You now know how to build the shallow terrain trap, the midwater pen, the deeps terrain trap, the deeps fortress trap, and lastly here, the deeps pillar class. Additionally, you got the 3 rules for underwater taming in ARK Survival Evolved. Well, number 1, use the environment to your advantage. Number 2, know the tame size, what's going to fit in what trap. And number 3, brace for impact. Something's going to go wrong. We want to mentally prepare and prepare to bounce back and move forward with success. And respecting rule number 3, I built a little forward operation base just outside my Deep Pillar Classic with some basic supplies and repair tools. You can't put down a bed underwater. This is not a vacuum compartment. For some bonus content, thanks for watching the entire video and through all the traps. You say, how do you build underwater? I like to bring a newt. It can move forward, it can move side to side, it acts as an additional oxygen tank, it's fairly fast. If something's trying to take a bite out of me, if I can't outrun it, I can outmaneuver it. This makes building really nice, and I can zip around my trap. Worst case scenario, I can even use it to kite something into the trap. The newt is a great way to go. You can also use a manta. The manta does not fit through a 1x1 gap. I leave this little manta slot right at the back, so if something is chasing me and I want him in the trap, I will just zip right through with my manta. An anglerfish is another great option. I like the extra life source. That's sometimes very nice to have. It only fits in and out of the top of the trap. It's a pretty bulky fish, but it has a moderate speed and a reasonable health pool. I love me a Baryonyx. I can pull out a weapon on their back. They have reasonable health pool, they're fairly maneuverable, and they fit through any and all gaps in the Deep Pillar Classic, which makes them great for kiting things in or escaping as I'm trying to build underwater. Another aquatic option is the frog. It's got kind of a derpy swim animation, but I can pull out a weapon on its back. It's fairly maneuverable and fast, and I can zip my way through the trap if I want something in or to escape something from out. And of course, you thought I forgot, you've always got the option of using a dolphin. Yes, you can pull out a weapon while riding on them. They're fairly fast, fairly maneuverable. I cannot get them through the manta gap. They don't fit through the 1x1 pillar gap. They can fit through a 1 wide gap in the ceiling. Just like rule number 2, know the size of your tame, know the size of the creature you're using to build on or to kite creatures in with, and use the terrain to your advantage. Back here at the Deeps terrain trap, I've got a Plesiosaur in the trap, and you say, how did I get in there? Did he really chase you? No, I swam in here with an anglerfish, and the anglerfish, remember, doesn't fit through the 1x1 gap. He sure fits through this gap that I left that Plesiosaur sure cannot fit through.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Feel free to comment with suggestions for future content you'd like to see. If you would like to see more quality content, please consider supporting the channel through Patreon and/or utilizing the affiliated links. Thank you.